Have you ever noticed how almost every conversation about money circles back to one of two things: a clever tip that sounds brilliant for 5 minutes, or a story about someone who got lucky and struck gold? Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money gives us a kinder, clearer alternative. Money decisions are mostly about behavior, not IQ. They're about how we act over decades, not the headline trades that make good stories. The book, published in 2020, is built from 19 short, memorable essays that use real-life stories and clear thinking to show why what we do with money matters more than what we know about markets. Housel himself isn't a salesperson for a strategy. He's a writer and observer who used to write for The Motley Fool and The Wall Street Journal, and now works with Collaborative Fund. That background helps him translate finance into human terms rather than formulas. The core message is refreshingly simple. Success with money is not a single big move. It's the accumulation of small, sane moves repeated over a long time, and the mindsets that let you keep doing them. That's why he insists that personal finance is a soft skill. It sits at the intersection of psychology and economics, and why much of the book asks questions like, how do you stay wealthy rather than just get wealthy? What does enough look like? And how do luck and risk quietly shape outcomes? One of the book's most quoted lines is a lesson every creator and viewer should hear. Wealth is what you don't see. Flashy houses, cars, and status signals are often the opposite of real financial strength. True wealth is the savings, investments, and optionality that sit quietly in the background, unseen until you need them. That idea flips the usual social script. Instead of buying to show status, you buy to give yourself freedom. The freedom to choose how you spend your time and who you spend it with. Housel goes deeper by making three critical distinctions that change how you approach money. First, getting wealthy and staying wealthy are different skills. Catchy, risky bets can create sudden riches, but preservation, patience, humility, and margin for error is what keeps wealth over time. Second, luck and risk are often invisible twins. The same event that looks like genius when it succeeds can look terrible when it fails, and you rarely get a fair sample to judge which is which, so humility matters. Third, compounding is less mysterious than patient. Small returns sustained over long periods build the kind of fortunes that single bets rarely do. These aren't abstract claims. Housel shows how historical patterns and human stories reveal that a few tail events or long stretches of compounding drive most outcomes in investing and business. So your best strategy is often to give yourself time and protect yourself from ruin. Practically speaking, the book asks you to treat your financial plan like a life plan. Decide what enough actually means for you, and then design systems that make it easy to reach and stay there. He points out the mental traps many of us fall into: envy disguised as aspiration, the ego that wants to win short-term, and the storytelling mind that connects random successes into a pattern of skill. Housel's advice is wonderfully human. Build a margin of safety. Automate savings until they feel like a recurring bill. Favor simplicity in investments, low-cost broad funds. And don't let bright, flashy ideas distract you from steady progress. If you're tempted to chase the next hot tip, he gently asks, will this help you sleep at night? If the answer is no, it's probably not worth the risk. One of the most useful chapters is the one on room for error. Always assume things will go wrong sometimes and plan for the possibility that might mean keeping a healthy emergency fund, avoiding crippling leverage, or owning a portfolio that can survive long stretches of bad returns without forcing you to sell. The goal here isn't perfection, it's resilience. Housel's writing also reframes saving as a mindset rather than a budget line item. Saving isn't only about cutting expenses to the bone, it's about creating options. Options let you act when opportunities appear, and they let you trade time for money in ways that buying a nicer car never will. Relatedly, he reminds us that income growth matters more than a microscopic obsession with penny pinching. The single best lever for improving your financial life is often increasing what you earn, then automating a portion of it toward long-term goals. The book balances this with a stern warning against comparing your life to others. The headlines and public displays hide most of the story, and trying to match someone else's lifestyle is a fast track to regret. Housel also tackles the psychology of market moves and timing. He doesn't tell you to time the market. Instead, he shows why people who try to pick bottoms or chase corrections often underperform people who remain invested and focused on the long term. Markets are noisy, and noise rewards stories, the kind of stories that look smart in hindsight. But the messy reality is that returns are driven by a few long compounding stretches and unpredictable winners. Your job is to put your time and contributions where they can compound, and to avoid actions that could permanently impair your capital. The book's humility is one of its greatest strengths. It repeatedly reminds readers that history is full of surprises, so the best plan is one that survives surprises. One especially powerful takeaway is Housel's argument about enough. He suggests asking yourself a simple question before chasing more. What's good enough? That question is a form of armor against the endless escalation of wants. Having an answer reduces the risk that success becomes a treadmill, where each new win simply raises your standard of living and your desire in lockstep. Another enduring lesson is about control. The more your money gives you control over your time, the ability to say no, to leave a job you hate, to spend days with people you love, the more valuable that money is. In that sense, money's highest purpose is freedom, and that outcome often requires modesty and patience rather than heroism. The book is full of short, memorable anecdotes that illustrate these ideas without lecturing. Historical examples, profiles of famous fortunes and bankruptcies, and small thought experiments that force you to confront your instincts. The result reads less like a technical manual and more like a friendly coach nudging you toward better habits. It's practical without being prescriptive, and it respects the messy complexity of real people's lives. For listeners who want an action list after hearing all these ideas, Housel's implicit checklist is simple and doable. Figure out your enough. Automate savings so you never have to rely on willpower. Build a margin for error so life's shocks don't derail you. Favor simple diversified investments that you can hold for decades. And invest a lot of your energy into increasing your earning capacity rather than cutting every small expense. Those steps address both the math and the messy human side, the psychology that determines whether you'll follow through. Critically, the book's final lessons are emotional. Money's role in life is not to impress others, but to give you options and peace of mind. Use it to buy time, privacy, or experiences, not just toys. And when you step back and look at the long arc, what matters is not how many clever calls you made, but how consistently you chose the actions that built resilience and allowed compounding to work in your favor. Readers and reviewers alike have praised The Psychology of Money for turning high-level finance into practical psychology, a perspective that's both calming and actionable for everyday people trying to build their future. So, after everything we've covered, what do I want you to do this week? Start with 3 small, friendly moves. Set up one automatic transfer from your checking to a savings or investment account the day you get paid. Choose a broad, low-cost fund as the core of your long-term portfolio and buy it without trying to time the market. And write down your answer to what's enough, not as a spreadsheet but as a sentence that anchors your choices. Do those, and you'll be practicing the core idea of Housel's book. Act in ways your future self will thank you for. Remember, money is less about equations and more about behavior. The habits you repeat beat the smartest plan you never follow. If this episode gave you a useful nudge, subscribe to The One Light for more book breakdowns that turn ideas into habits. And tell us in the comments which one small financial habit you'll start this week. I'll read them and we'll learn together.